If you want to learn how to draw trees with markers and pens, this is a video for you. These are two trees I will work through in this tutorial. I will start with light pencil sketch, then trace it with pens. Later I will talk about coloring techniques. If you like marker sketching and want to learn more drawing techniques, consider subscribing. Before we start, let's talk about drawing materials you will need. To color tree leaves, you will need 4 shades of green or yellow markers, 2 shades of warm gray for the tree trunk, and 1 cold gray for rocks. Any sketch paper will work, but I do not recommend using marker papers that have glossy finish because it's hard to blend colors on it. First, let's sketch some contour lines of the tree, rocks, and mountains behind. When you are drawing the tree branches, think of the shape of the letter Y, but try to avoid creating a symmetrical shape. I'm drawing this arrow to indicate the light source is coming from the upper left. Now I'm breaking down the shape of the tree crown by drawing a few oval shapes inside of the big circle. Each ellipse is one collection of tree leaves. To further define the shape of each collection, we're gonna draw loose and random lines here to roughly go around with each oval shape. I'm keeping drawing these lines to form individual shapes and leaving some gaps in between. Creating a nice looking shape is a very important step before we start to use the ink pen to add the texture. The gaps between shapes are parts that have less leaves, so you can see some branches coming out. I'm doing the parallel hatching to fill the gaps to add some value. With some simple lines, we already have a nice looking tree. Now we can draw some branches and rocks. Now we can erase the circle outline so we can draw more details. I'm adding more details for the tree trunk. Remember, tree branches and tree trunk often do not have smooth edges. They often have knots and dents. So we can draw some small curved lines to add texture. At this step, we can adjust the shape of this tree and add more layers to it. Now it's time for the ink pen. Here you need to decide what types of stroke you want to use and try to be consistent. Strokes type and scale can both change your style. In my previous video, I used circle strokes and a large scale of pointy stroke. So here I'm trying something a little bit different. I'm using some tiny pointy strokes here. Some tips for drawing strokes. First, add variation to its size. Second, all strokes should look like coming from a center following a radial direction. Following these tips will help your tree look more natural instead of geometric. But this is just my way to draw it. There is no right or wrong way of drawing trees, only a difference of styles. The focal point of this drawing is the tree, so I won't draw too many details on rocks. I'm just doing a very quick and loose sketch. But here is one quick tip for drawing rocks. Here I did a small drawing as an example. When you are drawing the outline, draw it quickly and apply different level of strengths. In this way, your lines will be sharp and straight, and it will have variation on the thickness, which will create the illusion of three-dimensionality. When you are ready, let's grab some markers to add colors. Let's briefly talk about shading. Remember at the very beginning we did a circle to simplify the shape of the tree crown. Our light source is coming from the upper left-hand corner. Overall, areas around the lower right-hand corner will have more darker value compared to the area around the upper left-hand corner. After we break down the shape of the tree crown into different collections, each collection will also have its own highlight, midtone, and cold shadow. The clump on the bottom will have much more darker value compared to the clump on the top, because the bottom clump is farther away from the light source. Now we can start coloring. Grab the lightest shade of green you have and do a light oblique hatching. Make sure your colors stay inside of your outline, otherwise it will look messy. The reason why I did hatching instead of solid fill is because I want this color to appear lighter, and it does add some styles to it. Now we can add shading on each clump by adding more value on the lower right side. Meanwhile, you can draw some strokes to add texture. Here I used the brown color for the tree trunk, but I didn't like it because it's too saturated, so I switched it to a warm gray. Remember the light source is coming from the upper left-hand corner, so when you are coloring the tree trunk, try to leave a small white space on the left side as a highlight, which I didn't do it here because I forgot, but I will show you how to do it later when I draw the second tree. Now grab a darker shade of green to add more value for the lower right portion of each clump. The edge of two clumps overlapped will also have darker value. When you are coloring this area, make sure it also has variations on light and darker value. so it will look more three-dimensional. When using the darkest shade of the green, slow down your pace. Think it through before you draw, because you cannot use light color marker to cover the darker color. Only add a few strokes near the lower right edge of each clown. If you added too much, the contrast will be way too strong. Here I made a mistake. The color I used on the tree trunk is way too dark, so the contrast is too strong. The tree trunk looks a little bit flat right now. I toned it down later by using a correction pen. Here I'm using a brighter green to slightly go over all colors to add some warmth, and draw some quick strokes for the grass. The last step will be using a correction pen to add a few dots as a highlight. Then this tree is finished. Now let's do another practice. Let's draw a tree that has a more irregular shape. The technique will be the same. Start by drawing some oval shapes to simplify the form of each clown. Then draw some squiggly lines to create organic shapes. So how do I decide where to position each clown? The key is the composition. Normally when I draw maple trees, I will use triangular composition. It's simple and easy to create a balance. I used the pointy strokes when I did the pencil sketch. Comparing to the first tree, the scale of strokes is larger, but I didn't quite like it. It looks like a hedgehog, which is cute, but I want to try something different. So here I'm drawing some marks combining pointy strokes and leaf-shaped strokes, so it looks less repetitive. Here I'm leaving some white space around the left edge of the trunk. The light source is coming from the upper left-hand corner, so the left side of the trunk will have lighter value. When coloring the rock, leave some white space on the top, because the top part is directly facing the light source. I don't have a darker gold color, so I used the dark warm gray here, which is not a very good choice because it makes color look a little bit dirty, but it does add more contrast. Now I'm just adding more variations on the line weight and draw more strokes to add layers. Later I will use the pen to do some parallel hatching to add more darker value for each clump, since I don't have more colors to do it. The final step will be using the correction pen to add the highlight. When you are drawing the outline or coloring, try to be loose. When I'm so afraid of making mistakes, my lines and strokes will become stiff. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. Practice more and have fun with it. So this is the final look of this tree. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy watching this tutorial and have learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to leave comments. I will see you in the next tutorial.